All right. What's so funny? Hi, my name is Edmund. I go to Vanguard High School, and I'm here with.
My name is Devontae, and I go to Vanguard High School.
My name is Johnny, and I go to Vanguard High School.
Today, Matthew is in attendance with us, listening to us talk and rant about steroids in gym culture and the athletic spaces. So basically, to start off, we'd like to recap what we said from our previous two podcasts.
There we go. Basically, we talked about stakeholders like doctors, influencers, and like pharmacies on how they impact the steroids life, and like how doctors play a big role and how they prescribe steroids to athletes, right? Emmy, you want to say something, Donnie?
Yeah. So yeah, we basically talked about that for the last two podcasts. We started off with the history of steroids. For a quick short reminder for those who didn't know, steroids started I think originally around 1945. They were made for Olympic use, and it started really from caffeine. That's where the whole idea of steroids started. Something to help the human body give it like a little bit of a push. Then it moved on to testosterone, something that our body naturally produces anyway. But maybe some people needed more of it than others to give their body a little kick and get, muscle. It's a growth hormone basically responsible for muscle growth and how tall you might be, other things like that. So, and from testosterone, that's when we started seeing more common things now like PEDs and all that. Those type of things were used in Olympics and bodybuilding and underground bodybuilding spaces and sports for a while until they were completely illegal. They were used pretty much out in the open until they were banned, and it was illegal against competition rules.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about how there's like other ways to grow muscle instead of steroids. Like it's factors that play a big role when you pursuing like fitness, right? Like diet play a big role, and kind of like consistency play a big role too. So there's actually other alternatives instead of taking steroids.
So my stakeholder is more in like the media side of things, and the influencers that show what it is about the gym and taking steroids. I feel like they hold high power and high interest when it comes to talking about it, regardless if they support it or not. Many users who do take it they abuse the power that social media has on every age that ranges from 12 to 40 years old. And so even more who work out for themselves and to live a healthy, lavish lifestyle, but when their goals and accomplishments aren't achieved, they feel dissatisfied. As I mentioned, they start to take shortcuts and advantages that are really disadvantages in the long run. And it's because of the media influencers that entertain, whether they are athletes or bodybuilders or gym influencers, who take these performance-enhanced drugs and benefit by encouraging that, if not that lifestyle, then what kind is better? That's the type of mindset that most of the gym influencees put out there, especially to their young audience and to any ages who watch them. Honestly, there's also this main influencer named the Trend Twins who have made their own steroid with a bunch of other supplements that that use drugs and all these other sort of supplements.
Yeah. I want to talk about doctors, specifically how some doctors are against steroids. There's actually a doctor named Dr. Nandi that known from publicly discussing the dangers of steroid abuse on TV and social media, right? Raising awareness and misuse of steroids and how they could be a major health risk, right? So we know how steroids could mess with your heart, basically like how your body functions, right? I mean, you wanna add in?
Yeah, I'll add in. Yeah.
Go ahead, my boy.
So yeah, my stakeholder group is athletes, and also I'm also going to be speaking about the actual companies. But I feel like right now will be more interesting, going off of Devontae and what Johnny has said. I feel like the more interesting stakeholder groups to talk about right now will be the companies behind these behind steroid creation.
And do these companies, sorry to cut you off, but do these companies have where do they sit do they have high power, high interest, or low power, high interest?
Of course, they have high power, high interest. Like both your stakeholder groups are obviously, whatever your stakeholder groups do, whether as long as it's positive for the company, they're always gonna benefit. If a influencer has a young audience that sees, like the Trend Twins, that see what is doing for their body, and they don't ever listen negatives of how you're gonna have to take that for the rest of your life. You're gonna have to be consistent on it. They don't ever listen negatives, but the company is going to, they're gonna improve. They're gonna be, they're gonna gain movement off of it, more sales. That's all they want, and that's a sad reality of these stakeholder groups.
Do you think since go back to Johnny, how he talking about the Trend Twins make their own steroids? Mm-hmm. I feel like they gain power from that too. They gain power and high interest because they're honestly getting paid. People are using their supplement, but as we know, taking steroids, certain people's body not gonna react the same. Like you see the YouTuber named Sam Sulik. Say for example, we take a steroid, it's not gonna react the same how it reacted for him. So just be mindful on what you put in your body.
Right.
I want to add on to what you said about the Trend Twins. That's how you see like how. When you guys talk about the PED and trend and gym culture, everything correlates. For example, like the Trend Twins get their supplements and they make their own steroids using other companies, which is where the companies come in play, and the businesses that develop these steroids and expand it out into, especially now the younger youth, the younger generation, and the younger influencers who then promote that to their own benefits. As long as they're making money and as long as the business's product is being pushed, then they have nothing to lose. They don't have the need to tell their viewers or their audience what's the downsides and what's the cons of
the steroid, right?
The steroid usage, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's almost kind of disheartening how romanticized steroid usage has been in the gym. I feel like it's really something that, when you really look at it, it has similar effects to things like cocaine, to your typical drugs that would go against normal conventions. Yeah, that people would see wrong. But just because there's no benefits that are coming out of those drugs besides a high, steroids are seen in a brighter light in the underground gym culture, when I fully believe they should be starting to get put in these same conversations as dopamine, ketamine, weed even, because at the end of the day, it's not a casual, even below weed, it's not a casual drug. It's not a casual drug that just gives you a normal high. It's something that actually affects you down to a genetic level. It affects your testosterone levels. It affects how likely you are to have kids. And I fully believe it's something that should be outright put in those same conversations as dopamine and ketamine. So to have influencers, going on to Johnny's thing, to have influencers who never list the bad sides of steroids, that's disheartening, and that also messes with the minds of their audience, who are usually younger kids by the age of 15 to 16, who are just starting their gym journey, think this is the way, and there's no one better to step in. All the big corporations that see this, they only care about making a quick buck, getting more profit. If the influencer is driving more people to steroids, whether they be kids or not, they'll do that.
High power, high interest.
High power, high interest. So we see that a lot too with even to relate to other things. To relate to other fields, we see that a lot with alcoholism, with things like buzz balls, how they're so they're colorful and all that. They're literally advertised for children.
That's where most of our stakeholder lies on right now, and also getting into Edmund's stakeholder on sports and the athletes and the coaches that have everything to do with sportsmanship. They see the steroids and see the trend as an advantage. They see it as an advantage on the field, on just anywhere, on the ring, and sometimes they keep silent or get silenced by their coach or keep it away from the coach. And sometimes there's cases where the coaches don't even say anything, and they allow this performance enhanced drug usage on the field, which can ultimately affect the athlete's life on the long run, because they may not be so aware about the cons of using those drugs. For example, testosterone levels, anger issues, and all these other side effects that steroids have on
the human body.
Can I draw a comparison to that real quick? Yeah. So about what Johnny said, this brings up a very interesting connection I have. For the people who've seen the movie Sinners, you know, and all that. The Ryan Coogler, very good director. There's also another movie coming out called Him by Jordan Peele. And that movie is basically like kind of similar to what we're talking about with athletes and drugs. It's similar to it's similar to what we're talking about because it depicts an athlete who gave his whole life for football, and you know it goes into their motivations. He gave his whole life for football. His mom has cancer on the edge of dying, and he pretty much the drugs in that movie is going to be represented by and depicted as like sort of like a sin or like a devil, like trying to take a deal with the devil to get more improvement, which is what I believe fully it is. Like you don't see him outright use drugs in a movie, but he does take a deal with the evil creature in the movie, which I fully believe represents steroids. He goes to see an ex NFL player. He asks, "What are you willing to throw away to just get a couple wins, to just have a fulfilling career?" That's the whole concept. That's the whole concept of steroid use. That's the whole concept of drug use within the athletics department. Within that, you're sidestepping sportsmanship to get a push ahead of your push ahead of your competition.
Yeah. There's actually a psychologist that tested like hormones and how like it affects cancer. Right, his name is Charles Huggins, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like steroids can play with your mind. It's like from what Johnny said with the Trent twins and what I said with the with Sam Sulek, right? There's a lot of teenagers that look up to them, which is good and bad because wanting to be like somebody with steroids could leave a crazy toll on your body, and yeah, like long term issue you can have is like, let me think, like I said before, heart problems.
Yes, like I would like to add on to what you said and pick up like understanding the fact that your audience is young, which they don't care, they don't seem to have a care in the world for that. Them knowing that their audience don't know how to take care of themselves while on that drug, and still promoting it and still telling them, you know, this is the only way. If it's not this way, then what way? And just off of that, the audience and media, they encourage that behavior. They encourage the usage, which gets really dangerous, and which is why our group still stands with the fact that trend and performance enhanced drugs should not be used in the gym culture or for any sort of activity for that matter, just to have a field of advantage.
Yes. I think what is it? I think that first of all, the idea of having a field built on it's like this field is like basically an extreme version of steroids. Is basically an extreme version of medicine. This is how it feels, extreme version of the field of medicine. Medicine meant to improve your body, people profiting off of your needs, your body. But this is them profiting off of your wants, your desires. Truthfully, yeah. And it's just this affects mainly the working class people. That's the funniest thing about it. Because at the end of the day, the richest people, the people at the top level, have access to these nutritionists. They have money to get whatever they need to get their body to whatever status they need. That's why we see so many actors and actresses just wake up one day, drop 50 pounds, then after the next day they're back up 20 pounds because they have the best access to food, the best access to nutritionists, the same thing, and the best gyms. But we don't, and the best trainers too. But we as working class people,
you gotta have money though.
We as working class people don't have access to any of that, and because we also don't have access to we don't have any type of confidence within our power and standing in our current society. Because power is seen as wealth, seen as all that. But the only other version of power we could even possibly have access to that could even like satisfy our egos for a second is body. That's the truth. That's the truth. Other than wealth and your actual like influence over other people, your body is the only other factor. It's the only other factor in deciding. I lost my train.
I'll chime in.
Yeah, chime in.
What I was gonna say. Do you think people can overdose on steroids?
Yeah, all the time, of course. I feel
people have passed away due to having heart attacks. A heart attack is like an overdose when you take steroids. When it's too much, it usually stops your heart and cancels everything out, which is how a lot of the gym bodybuilders who are on media show this. They live for long. They usually deny the allegations and then randomly pass away due to the steroids. Right? Due to the steroids due to health risks because of the steroids.
Yeah. Let me see.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a doctor named John, right? He was the first doctor who introduced anabolic steroids in the U.S. to athletes in 1950, especially with the development of, I don't know, higher test, right? Basically, it boosts like muscle growth, right? So say if I'm a normal casual lifter, right? It takes time for the body to gain muscle mass. Like, you need a good diet, consistency, and those two play like a big role in the gym, right? So people with steroids, everything is enhanced. So for example, if it takes me 6 months to gain that muscle, people on steroids, you cut that in half, it'll take 3 months. Steroids basically just give you a big advantage, not a slight advantage, depending on how much you take. Like I asked them, you can overdose on steroids, right?
Yeah.
But steroids can be used for health, right? So say if you have a low test, right? It can be used to higher that, right? So just be cautious on what you inject into your body. Right?
Yeah, I agree with Devontae. I actually go to the gym, and I ran across this one guy literally maybe just last week who explained to me basically like when he originally came to this country, he's an immigrant, migrated to this country. He's where's he even from? I think Pakistan. He was a skinny kid. He was 16, but there was no signs of puberty on his body. They went to go check how high his testosterone was in the hospital. They found out that he was about 300 points lower than where the testosterone should be. So he was about at a 92. The usual testosterone of a regular day man in his 30s or even in his 20s is around 250 and up.
That's really low.
So that's way low. So they basically had to prescribe him testosterone, and to this day now he has to take this testosterone shot in short doses. So of course I feel like there's health needs that even like I guess technically steroids or testosterone can help fill out for a person. That's not what I'm disagreeing with. I just think when it comes down to just casual use or using it when it comes down to casual use, it is just off your ego. That's a fact. If you see somebody, it's all about legacy. If you see someone with a big body, strong muscles, very dominant muscles, going across the street in your day-to-day life, you're gonna automatically in your head it comes down to, oh, that's a very powerful person. That's an impressive person. Because coming back even thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, even with lions right now, whoever's usually the biggest is usually seen as the most dominant. People just want to be the top dog. That's it. But if they can't get there without wealth or influence, they're gonna do it physically. Yeah. It's the same thing with sports. Players in sports realize that if I'm not one of the tops or one of the best in this sport, they're gonna forget me. Highly competitive people are gonna be like, they're gonna forget me. All the people that watch this sport are going to forget me 1 or 2 years after I retire. So they take the steroids thinking that, okay, this will make me so much better that I'll be able to cement my legacy. I'll be able to win, cement my legacy. Not knowing at the end of the day, it's not gonna be worth it. It's not gonna be worth it. Their sports career just ends up being a fraction of their life because they usually go on for 10, 11 years. That's a fraction of their life because after that they have 40 more years to live, like 60 more years to live.
If they don't take steroids.
The average male body starts declining at about 31, 32. So if you take steroids around 32, it's not going to matter anymore. You're still going to have to be constantly taking it. You're not even going to be able to go to the gym. Your body's basically going to be ruined. You might not even have a chance to have kids.
Yeah. So those are all the side effects, like how you said, not being able to have kids because the steroids kill your sperm cells, and it has all these other side effects and all these negative effects to your body. So more so going more into depth of last podcast, we talked about how the doctors can still prescribe trend to the people who want it, but do advise them. Like, what do you guys think about that? Like, do you guys still agree with that? And do you guys still stand with the fact that like steroids should be banned and not just and I quote like
I'll answer your question. Steroids should be banned, because we see kids nowadays that's 14 going into steroids just because these influencers impacted their life in some way, you know?
So, okay, I want to add on to, because I know we also have to talk about the capitals. So, you know how your stakeholder is doctors, right?
Yeah.
Where do you think they lie in? Like, in what capital do you think they lie in?
You mean like high power, low? You talking about that? You talking about?
Yes.
I mean,
the capital.
anyone want to add on?
Yeah, you can pause. And we're back. Okay, let's continue.
back?
Yeah, we're back.
All right. Johnny asked what capital doctors are in. I feel like it's cultural because we see how doctors test these medicines. They prescribe these medicines, and we see. I feel like doctors could test if steroids are good for the body. This is why we see them prescribe them to these athletes, right? But there are some doctors that have this high power and high interest. They only care about money and status, right? No, I want to say status because obviously if you sell steroids and you get caught, you're gonna get, fired from where you work at, right? So I think these doctors know what they're doing, and they play a big role in the steroid game, you know? We gotta talk about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. From my side of things, pharmacy companies, I'll start off with that. I feel like their capital is related. It's kind of related to how doctors are. I feel like their capital is very cultural. It's very cultural. If there was, of course, monetary capital, but their capital is very cultural. Because in some sort of sick, twisted way, they do really only care about money, but in some sort of sick, twisted way, they want to see their product improve people. You know what I'm saying? The better their product does out there is the more money that comes their way. So in a roundabout way, they want to see people improve. They want to use their skills, their scientists, their knowledge to I guess do that type of stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Pharmacies and doctors do play hand in hand because we see doctors prescribe these medicines to the pharmacy and people get it from the pharmacy. So I feel like they both work hand in hand. But to go to Johnny, right? What capital you think the influencers are in? So
my capital when it comes to media and influencers, my capital is social, because there's a foundation built in the idea of trend, whether or not trend usage is acceptable and is not. There's different areas based upon that, but for the gym culture, for the people who for example, like my stakeholder, which is the influencers, they have high power and high interest, so their foundation is built based on how trend and steroids is good for you, and how that's the only way you can upgrade and really change your lifestyle, and that's the only way you can seek ultimate body mass and gain mass. And they use the media. That's what they use the media for, that support, for them to tell their viewers and tell all these other people and shift their minds into thinking that it is good when in reality it isn't, and it has major risks. Like said, another capital I do want to get into that has to do with navigation is when we look at other stakeholders. For example, the influencers, when it comes to our say on the fact that we don't think that trend and performance enhanced drugs in the gym culture is valid and is not, like, it should not be allowed, and it's unhealthy and it's risk and it's toxic, is the navigation capital. Because in that sort of that point of view, in that field, the gym influencers and the gym users who are on the media feel unwelcomed and underappreciated, which is validated, but some may feel pittiness, which is why this is a very controversial topic.
Yeah, there are actually doctors that take steroids, right? A doctor that takes a steroid, his name is Eric Sorino, right? He's been suspected or rumored to have used steroids himself based on the muscular physique he had and how developed his body was. It was a deep involvement in the strength world, right? So yes. basically we see how doctors really impact, I would say, the world, right? Because obviously if we have a health problem, we go to doctors and we trust these doctors. But as we see, these doctors take steroids, right? These doctors take steroids, they prescribe steroids. Sometimes it could be legally, illegally, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to talk about how there are some that do take steroids, right? Doctors are not innocent, right? They're humans like us, right? Doctors want a fit body, they want to be healthy, but at what cost, right? They're sacrificing their body in the long run just for that enhanced look, right? So when you can just dedicate time just to achieve that look that you want, feel me? Long term, not short term. Short term is gonna come with health risks, health problems, basically, that you don't want down the line in your life. Like I said, you want to live to 75 and above, right?
Yes.
So don't take steroids.
All right. Devontae, going on to that point, actually, that brings up a lot of questions. If our own doctors are taking steroids, does that kind of hurt their credibility when it comes to these sort of things? That's actually a very interesting talking point to go off of that I'm going to go on now. It's kind of the question of is it kind of hypocritical for a doctor to tell you your drug use is bad when they're using the same drug as you? They're coming from a medical professional standpoint, but they're still doing the same thing as you outside those medical and professional hours. That's why.
And how does? So I want to chime in, and I want to ask, how does all of this connect to gym culture?
Okay. Yeah. Literally right there. Yeah, it connects literally to gym culture because you see, literally a doctor who knows all the side effects of this, who knows how bad taking steroids is, still, well, not fully confirmed, but most likely still took it, knowing all those effects. If I don't know what else you could tell that as, but ego and hubris. Ego and hubris wanted to be on the same level as these other people who have this body. So some people probably even know. Well, most people probably even know about Sam Sulek. This literally relates to that. Most people probably know about Sam Sulek. Probably know about the Trent twins. They know what they do to get to that level, to get to that body. But they want, their ego's telling them okay, but in their head the logic is it's unhealthy for me, it's bad. But the ego, which has been us as humans a lot more times than we like to admit, is telling them, okay, let's do it. Let's take it to get on their level. But but that small moment of ego is gonna be a huge downside and a huge problem when you're out your prime, when your steroids are done messing up with your, well, not done, but when they continue messing up your body past 35, past 36. That's, so if our own doctors who understand the whole side effects and everything about this are taking it, this is nothing more than an ego thing with humans, knowing full out the consequences of it, but taking it just so they can feel lined up, and on the level of others who got to their position more so naturally.
Ego. It's called ego. Yeah. So, Johnny, I want to ask you, right? Since you talking about influences, right? How did Arnold? You know Arnold, right? Obviously. How did Arnold impact the fitness community? Because we know he took steroids.
So Arnold shifted Arnold shifted majorly the view in just taking steroids to feel good about yourself and for bodybuilding. That's how it was introduced. As we said in our first podcast, it dates back to the early 1950s where steroids were used just for medication and for simple enhancement for people who are in need of it, and also for people who may need it, drugs like SARMs and Ozempic 2, Tren. Those are all used at first it was used for benefits for people who were in need of it. Later it was discovered that other people use it for track, for athleticism, and for bodybuilding, that's where Arnold lies in the bodybuilding community and the bodybuilding aspect of things. He was a really great one. He was a good one, and he believed in always giving it your all, that your body is never too weak, that pain is just weakness leaving your body. And that was the mindset that grew onto him, and that impacted a lot of the gym community and the gym culture, because once he passed away, sadly he passed away due to the steroid usage, but he still left that heavy impact. it shifted a lot of people's minds to thinking that, wow, like I can also be this way, or one can also be as strong as that. And if it ain't that way, then what better way is there?
Yeah.
And I feel,
go ahead.
And I feel that the steroid use is very close to becoming, as one of those counterculture topics that are very close to becoming mainstream, because it's kind of okay now. Like I feel like if someone were to sit here and tell you, oh, I've used steroids before, I use steroids right now, most people would be like, in the gym would be like, oh okay, you would be less credible, cool. But I feel like with nothing to sway it, even our medical professionals can't sway it. It's just the sad story of humanity. Any type of product that we find that can help us, it's a sad story of literally the medical field as a whole. Any type of product we find that can help us, that can aid us, is spinned around and turned around into this like nasty version that's meant to give profit to those who are making it. Medicine that we actually need, so they spin it around and they make it into profit. Shots that we actually need, basic health insurance, basic help that we need to survive. Even water everything has a price tag on it.
Yeah, I want to add on to what Johnny was talking about. Arnold, right? Steroids was actually legal in the 1970s, and from what I'm hearing, Arnold steroids was actually supervised by a doctor, right? So as we see, we trust these doctors today to prescribe us the medicine when we're sick and all that. But like I talked about before, these doctors might know what they're talking about, and they're using steroids for themselves. Like they're prescribing themselves with steroids, right? So more of the whole thing, steroids is not like steroids is a big deal. I feel like in the US and like in general, because as we see these bodybuilders use it, these teenagers. I actually saw a kid that was actually 11 years old talk about using steroids, and there was one that actually used it, right?
I'm sorry to chime in, but I love the connection that you made there, that the influencer and like the fact that you asked me about Arnold being in the media side of things, connecting to the doctor. I didn't know that. You did enlighten me on the fact that he did have a doctor that helped him maintain his body weight and keep him healthy as long as they possibly could. But you see, even to those extents, like when you're that dedicated and the dedication is shown, you still can't outlive the unhealthy risks of the steroid usage, which is why I say like the influence should be canceled off. It should be shut off from the gym side of the gym culture when it comes to media. That's something the media needs to make a change, because as long as steroids are around and they're not banned and they're acceptable and I guess like used, it's not good for the youth.
Yeah, Edmund, got a question for you. How do you think that we see these teens and these kids look up to these influencers and their physique? This is basically going back to the second podcast, right?
Yeah.
How do you think these these kids and teenagers, we see how they look up to Alex Eubank, but he's natural though, right?
Yeah.
No, he's not natural no more.
Yeah, no. But they still have to take like that. That's what I'm saying. Like the media is very complex. When I talk about fitness influencers that use the steroids, they have their own opinions and their own doubts of steroids, and there's like actual influencers on, like, for example, YouTube. Like I've mentioned before, there's a YouTuber called Will who does put videos out there to let his audience know and let the gym audience that he has, let them know the risks of taking tren and how young people get motivated to take it because they see one set influencer taking all these limits and reaching this physique, reaching their goal, and them feeling good about themselves, only to be at risk. But they don't see that. That's what they don't know. And the media also does that. The media builds a different foundation where they know that it's not good for you, which is where the boycotters come in. Like, what do you guys think about like all the things that are against steroid usage? For example, like one that I would like to pick. Can somebody chime in, because I forgot the name?
Okay. Going on to what you guys were saying and what Johnny was talking about with Arnold. It's kind of interesting that that whole scheme, or that whole like pyramid, I guess, of steroid creation, pharmacy, then influencer, then to the followers, It's kind of been a constant thing since like the 1900s.
And doctors now it's taking steroids.
And doctors now taking it too. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's like that whole pyramid has been that thing that stayed tried and true.
Yeah.
That's been making them so much money in that field that it stayed there and it stayed like, you know, a part of that. And I also find it super interesting now that even like that steroid usage has slipped like into mainstream gym culture and athletic culture very strongly, to the point that we see that if we see like a big or an impressive physique and it's all natural, people in the comment section are going to be questioning it very hard. They're going to be like, no, it has to be steroids. It has to be steroid. I'm looking for the needle mark. I'm looking for the back acne. They're looking for anything to discredit you, because they in their head they can't fathom like, oh, you did that naturally. You did that on hard work. Hard work isn't appreciated anymore in our society. Now it's just shortcuts. What's the fastest way I can get to? What's the fastest way I can get to this? What's the fastest way I can get to this? What's the fastest way I can get to this? We see that with the same thing with money. What's the fastest way to get rich? What's the fastest way to be done with this? What's the fastest way to be done with school? Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So everything is just built on shortcuts, and all this hard work is just being undermined. It's just being undermined now. It's just being overlooked, because now there's so many shortcuts out there in gym culture that it just makes, I guess people just can't fathom why wouldn't you use steroids? Why wouldn't you use steroids? Your physique is impressive. You must have used steroids. It just discredits a lot of people's work.
Johnny, you got anything to say or not?
So I wanted to continue. Thank you for chiming in for me there, but I wanted to also add on like the boycotters, the people who are against the usage, which is the anabolic androgenic steroids, is a company, and it's a health administration where they cancel out any use and don't tolerate any trend usage in the athletic field, in the gym field, in the bodybuilding field, and this is just one example, one of many examples of, even though they have high power, even though they have a high interest, their power is very low. It's very low, and it's sad because a lot of people in the world usually evolves around social media, which is what I want to get into in our next podcast. I know our podcast is coming to an end, but yeah, that's what I want to base my topic on next.
All right, Demonte, what do you want to base your topic on for the next podcast, since our podcast is coming to an end?
Let me see. I mean, you might as well,
chime in here.
Yeah, chime in here, Sako.
For our next podcast, I do want to continue on with our whole with my whole athletic side of things and company side of things. I feel like those are two very like intertwined things, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's just something I want to continue with. I want to even see, besides getting our guests who's the average gym goer or a prominent gym goer, I want to see if we can also get a sports focused guest who could chime in on basically why they feel like the use of drugs in their field would help. Why do they feel like they would ever contemplate it? Why would they feel like they would ever contemplate the use of drugs in their field? Along with that, I feel like I'm very interested in continuing our talk on how influencers have always sort of been a thing, and how they affected that whole steroid pattern, the current steroid usage.
Yeah, I want to get more into depth about how what steroids doctors used, how they used it, and who prescribed it to them, because I doubt they prescribed it to themselves. They probably went to another doctor. So I basically want to get more in depth about doctors,
I want to also figure out the psychology. I want to also talk about the psychology of steroid usage. I feel like we've been going a lot into a social impact and all that, but I want to see the psychology, why people feel like they need to do it, why people want to do it, why people would risk their health to do it, why people would risk death to do it. That's what I want to talk about, and
I want to talk about one more thing. I want to piece everything together from the first podcast into the third podcast. How we talked about how these influencers put false narratives in these teenagers' mind, in these kids' mind, and how they basically have a high power, high interest in the YouTube game. Because we see these YouTubers taking steroids, and they're kind of basically giving the okay to take steroids, like it's okay for them to take steroids. Like I talked about how young kids take steroids just because they want their body to be a certain way like I would say fully developed, because when we look at a body that when we look at somebody that takes steroids, we think of their body fully developed, but no, they're basically rushing their muscle growth in a way, right? Because your body grows over time. That's why when we see these excuse me, when we see these natural lifters go to the gym, they eat, right? That's how your body grow, right? We eat, and over time our body starts to develop, right? So this is just to wrap everything up. Yeah, I just want to go in depth on more how doctors and why they took steroids and the type of steroids they took.
So this is Edmund, Devontae, and Johnny signing out and calling it a day. See you on podcast
tomorrow.
number 4. Until tomorrow, until next week, buddy.